Welcome to the worst of the best podcast. You wanted the best. Well, they didn't freaking make it! So here's what you get. From Canada, Ryan and
Jason. Welcome to another episode of the Worst of the Best podcast. I'm your host, and with me, of course, is my brother, Jason.
Yeah, good day to you as well.
How are you this Sabbath day? It's not the Sabbath today, but...
Yeah, what day is it today? This is so you're actually Thursday.
It's Thursday morning for me, and it's a Wednesday night for you. At the time of this recording, if anyone cares or even knows, I'm serving or I'm deployed out in the Middle East right now. I'm in the military, and I'm working out here in the Middle East, in Qatar, at the air base here with the Americans, watching activities. Put it this way, this is what I can say. When things make the news, I saw it first on watch. It's kind of weird. It's kind of interesting. Yeah. Okay, so Jason, the Catholic Church, a fascinating religion, a fascinating organization, both for good and bad, I guess you could say, as far as information goes. But the Catholic Church, what an organization, wouldn't you say?
Okay, so one of the places I would like to visit would be Italy. Almost most specifically would be to visit the headquarters for the Catholic Church, the Vatican.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Vatican, yeah. Oh, I agree. I think it'd be fascinating. Find a lot of their church buildings and structures very cool artwork. Structure is unique. I've been in a few Catholic churches, especially historical ones. Just look around and seeing the architecture and the artwork. It is really quite fascinating. Something that's even more fascinating, Jay, is the Vatican itself. Just like you mentioned, the Vatican. Yeah. Now, as you might know, the Vatican serves as the central hub for the largest branch of Catholicism. Having been around for nearly 2,000 years and known for its secretive nature, the Vatican, along with the Catholic Church it represents, has been the subject of numerous rumors about possessing intriguing items. I'm sure, Jay, if you and I went to the Vatican right now and had everyone emptied out of it and we had open access to every nook and cranny in that building or that structure, I'm sure we'd come across some very interesting things from artworks, journals, diaries.
That is the reason why I want to go. I want to find my way into the secret rooms, the secret basements, the secret archives. I believe we would be able to rewrite history in a very real way if we had access to what they have hidden.
That's what we're discussing today. We are discussing 10 things that may or may not be within the Vatican's secret archives. We're going to explore some of these rumors. At the end of this episode, Jason and I will, independent of each other, will choose what we think is the worst kept secret or speculative secret within the Vatican walls. So basically, which one do we think is like the least likely? That's my criteria anyways. The least likely thing that the Vatican is holding. And the other 9 things, hey, there might be a possibility they're there. Who knows? This, I think, will be a fun discussion.
Or we can do it this way. Maybe this is another way of doing it. If we could have access to all 10 items, which is the one that we would care the least amount about?
Which one do you think is the least likely being held there? So really,
sure,
all 10 could be unlikely, and some of them are quite unlikely, but which one do you think is the absolute least likely? And then, yeah, if you had access to 10 of them, but you had to get rid of one of them, I think that one might be kind of easy because I know which one I would already pick with that. But we'll get there. Okay. All right, Jay, number 10. It's not surprising that the Vatican, being the epicenter of Christianity, has been surrounded by rumors regarding a plethora of religious artifacts. As one of the oldest institutions globally, it has been speculated to house significant items with religious importance. These rumors range from artifacts like the cross on which Jesus Christ was crucified on, the Holy Grail, the Ark of the Covenant, to Noah's Ark itself. Essentially, almost every major Christian artifact has been rumored to find a place within the Vatican's secret archive. In addition to these well-known items, there are whispers about the storage of a lesser-known and more peculiar religious artifacts. Some are so obscure that the average person may not even be familiar with them. Among the more unconventional items rumored to be housed in the Vatican are Jesus' foreskin, the preserved body of Christ, and even the crown of thorns worn by Jesus during his crucifixion. These speculations contribute to the air of mystery surrounding the Vatican's secret archive. So in this number 10, I mean, it kind of has a bit of a cheat, but I think it's all the big things, right? The Bible stories. We've got the cross, we've got the Ark of the Covenant, we've got body parts of Jesus, essentially. Number 10, it's a collective, I guess you could say it's the biblical proofs of the story, some of the story proofs within the archives. Do you think any of these biblical props, so to speak, exist within the Vatican?
These ones specifically, I can see why some may be held secretively. Others, I would think that they would want to use to kind of prove Christianity and prove Jesus Christ's existence and show an archaeological proof. So why some might be held in secret and why some aren't exposed to help bolster up their claims. Christianity, I mean, they say, oh, if they do have Noah's Ark, you would share that, wouldn't you? Like, I would think that would be something that would be shared.
My guess is, and this would probably be the response of the Catholic Church or any religion that had quote unquote proof of the existence of some sort of major biblical event to prove the validity of these stories, which then it would prove the validity of the Bible, which then would prove the validity of God, the chain reaction.
Yeah.
Even if I came up to you and said, hey, I've got a piece of Noah's Ark here. Here's, I don't know, the seat that Noah sat on when they were floating in the water. I don't know. I'm not enough of a scholar to tell you that's the wood that God told Noah to make the ark out of and how old it is. But there's people that know how to do that, sure. But even if they found wood from that time period that looked like it floated on water for 40 days, does that really mean the whole world was flooded? There's a whole other discussions. Or maybe it was a local flood. Again, the cross that Jesus was crucified on, you could say, well, yeah, they got a cross from that time, but how do I know it was really Jesus on that cross? Did he leave some DNA blood on it? I mean, how would we test that DNA? Would it be, well, they even say that they have a preserved body of Christ, which doesn't make sense because he was resurrected. The crown of thorns would be an interesting one. That might be a good one. But again, you could just make a crown of thorns and say, yeah, this was.
Well, the other part to all this is that Catholics is long after Christianity.
100 plus years or so after the time of Christ's apparent existence. It wasn't around as a religion during his tenure on the planet, is my understanding. I'm not a religious scholar, but yeah.
No. To be a Catholic, if you're called a Catholic, how long after Jesus Christ's crucifixion was the Catholic religion solidified as a religion and held in Italy's the place that it is?
So for number 10, long story short, for number 10, Jay, I guess we can call that biblical artifacts, story props, so to speak, within the Vatican walls. That would be an interesting thing to rummage through. All right, you got the next one.
In 1939, a rather unexpected discovery was made under St. Peter's Basilica, the world's largest church in the heart of the Vatican city-state. 9 separate pieces of bone were found, and surprisingly, they were said to be stored in an unassuming, humble shoebox. Fast forward to 2013, Pope Francis presented these bones to the public during a Sunday service, only to lock them away again, keeping them hidden from public view ever since. The bones were claimed to belong to St. Peter, one of the central figures in Christianity, but there's skepticism among scholars. What adds to the mystery is the Vatican's decision not to make the bones available for public scrutiny or allow scholars to test their authenticity. The Vatican attributes this secrecy to a supposed 1,000-year-old curse linked to disturbing the peace of St. Peter's tomb. However, skeptics argue that this might just be an excuse to keep the bones away from further public inspection. Did you ever hear about that? I have no recollection of this. Do you?
I don't recall this story at all. I kind of like this one. I like the idea of Pope Francis, bringing out the bones and saying, in his Catholic voice, how they speak. I don't know. They come out and say, hey, everybody, look what we got here. Look what we got here. We got some of these bones of St. Peter's, and we got to put it back because we don't want to disturb the sacred tomb of St. Peter. I love it. It's always 1,000-year-old curse. Why can't it be 722-year curse? It's always 1,000 years. This place has been cursed for 1,000 years.
Right.
2,000 years in the making, close to St. Peter's Basilica, a discovery that traces back to ancient Rome and early Christianity. In a church closed for 35 years, what may be bone fragments of St. Peter himself, unearthed by a worker and shown on Italian TV, perhaps placed here by an early pope to assert his authority at a time of division within Catholicism.
How could something so historically important just be forgotten?
Yes, this is really a mystery.
St. Peter was one of Jesus' 12 apostles. His spirit, Catholics believe, now guards the gates of heaven. His body entombed at St. Peter's Basilica, one of Christianity's holiest shrines. Yet inside this small, forgotten church, the priest shows us a Roman-era pod where bone fragments were found. Scratched into the lid, the names of saints, including Peter.
The first name written above him is Petrus. Petros.
The relics found here, now closely guarded by the Vatican.
Can we see the bones? We can see now.
If Pope Francis decides to open an investigation, this could become a place of worship, a place of great pilgrimage.
Perhaps these relics of St. Peter were hiding in plain sight. A plaque at the entrance says they are here. And tonight, many are beginning to believe it.
Well, there you go. I love how it's etched in with the same, or St. Peter, the name Peter. The writing, you saw the writing. I think I could have forced writing. This was a chicken scratch writing. It says PET, or it's still kind of cool. And
I like that story.
you got to wonder who wrote that in. Somebody wrote it in. Somebody wrote those letters into these artifacts. I'm always curious who it was. Who were they? What time was this done? It's just interesting whether it was done in the 2000s or as early as 50 AD. Who knows? I find it interesting.
Yeah, that's a good story.
So number H8, described by Father Francois Brunet in his 2002 book, Le Nouveau Mystère du Vatican, or The Mysteries of the Vatican. The chronovisor is a device surrounded by rumors of being created and owned by the Vatican. Have you ever heard of this chronovisor?
I have, actually, yes.
Okay, I have too. It's one of the most fascinating things I've ever. It's quite fascinating. So if you haven't heard it, listeners, here we go. Allegedly developed by the world's top scientists in the 1950s and funded by the Vatican for undisclosed reasons, this theoretical device is said to resemble a pair of glasses worn against the face, kind of like the Google glasses we talked about in our last episode.
Yeah.
Its claimed functionality involves the ability to view events from the past, operating by processing electromagnetic radiation remnants from historical moments and converting them into visual images and audio. Now, let me just talk about that for a second. What I find fascinating is, obviously, this is probably not true, but what I find fascinating is their claimed functionality is kind of how things do work in science. Now, long story short, I'm in the military. My job or my trade, by what I've been trained in, is underwater warfare. And what we do is we take sound from water, and with computers, we convert that sound from water into frequency lines that I can look at visually. So the idea of taking one medium and processing into another medium so you can look at it in a different medium is a real thing. So the idea of what they're saying here is they've taken past electromagnetic radiation remnants from historical moments,
Right.
places
Just like an old
Exactly.
fingerprint that you can then identify that event.
into a visual image of some sort.
Right.
And audio too, which I find fascinating. They're able to turn. Anyways, so that's what they do with these glasses. The science behind changing one medium into another is a very real thing. Now, Father Brunet, the source of these claims, asserted that he witnessed significant historical events through the chronovisor, including the crucifixion of Christ and a performance of the lost tragedy Thyestes. According to the rumors, shortly after its creation, the chronovisor was dismantled due to concerns among church authorities that it was too powerful for any individual or group to possess. If the chronovisor exists, any evidence of its existence and capabilities is speculated to be securely stored within the Vatican's secret archive.
Another reason I want to go into their secret archives. Could you imagine picking up those bad boys and slipping them on? I'd rather have that than Google goggles or Google glasses.
Yeah. Oh, seeing the past would be amazing.
Yeah, it would be.
Some believe it to be a critical tool that has kept the Vatican's influence and power intact over the years. The shocking moment comes when Father Ernetti shared that he not only observed events, but was able to see the crucifixion of Christ and also photographed it for evidence. The photo on the left, they say, was taken using the chronovisor, and the one on the right is a very similar image found in a church in Perugia. He also tells that he saw the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah and other great historical events such as the founding of Rome. He saw Napoleon, Moses, and other important figures.
So what an amazing device that would be, eh? I think probably at the end of the day, it's the imaginations of somebody who wants to see these things, who wish they could observe these things. Somebody had a great imagination.
It's faith promoting, right? I have these tools that can verify things that we teach to help shore up our teachings and beliefs.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's probably one of the coolest things to own. But here's the thing. The Earth existed 2,000 years ago. Like the Earth, the planet existed. And the Middle East and Egypt and Bethlehem existed. Rome existed. So wouldn't that be kind of cool just to see the real, like there were humans walking around, right? You know what I mean? There were actual just humans walking around existing during the time of Christ.
Yes.
And it would be just fascinating just to physically, okay, I'm going back. Can I just watch? I'm going to zoom through this 30-year, 33-year lifespan of this figure called Jesus. And I'm really going to just, with my physical eyes, what the hell's going on around here? Excuse my language in such a religious topic, but what is going on around here? Like, seriously, who do we have here? Side note, one of the interesting books I read was, I think it was called Jesus the Zealot or something like that. I forget what it was called. Very interesting historical book, basically describing Jesus as a real figure and someone who did really rattle the cages of that time.
Right. Yes.
And who was a upriser, so to speak, against the old Jewish ways and the Sadducees and the Pharisees and all this stuff. Basically just describing him as a zealot. But that's kind of it. Like he wasn't really walking on water, turning water to wine or anything, but all those other great teachings and metaphors and all these other things. And he was crucified and punished for his zealotry, but he was then turned into a religious figure 100 years later, which is, as we all know, the first book written in the New Testament was written 100 years after the time of Christ. 100 years is a long time, especially back then when there was no internet and things like that.
Yeah.
Proper history.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. 100 years is a long time even now. We have a hard time keeping the news and information correct now. I can only imagine it was probably difficult back then as well with whatever they had to write things down.
Well, and the population, and the population was so much less dense. And why I think that makes it, why that's important also is that it's hard to verify facts between people. Like if your neighbor is, or your relative is 10 miles away, by the time you hear a story and you walk those 10 miles to tell your cousin, already you've forgotten. By the time you get there, by the time you see somebody else, by the time these things are shared, I mean, it's just so spread out over time and distances. I can't retain information about what I did yesterday, let alone involving a 10-mile. That doesn't sound like a far distance in our time when you just jump in a car. But if you traveling and sharing stories and insights into what is going on in the world, man, that's telephone tag that, or not. Is that telephone? What was that game? The telephone game, right? It gets lost.
All right, I think you got the next one, sure.
Yeah, the notion persists that deep within the Vatican's secret archive, there might be evidence concerning the existence or non-existence of Jesus. According to unverified claims, a recorded conversation between Emperor Nero of Rome and St. Paul, the potential contents of this conversation could either definitively confirm Jesus as a historical figure or challenge his existence, positing him as entirely fictional. Such revelations could significantly reshape our understanding of history. The reasons behind the Vatican's alleged secrecy regarding this potential evidence are unclear. If the proof suggests that Jesus didn't exist, it would be understandable why the Vatican might want to keep it hidden. Conversely, if there's evidence supporting Jesus' existence, the motivations for concealment remain uncertain. The speculation continues that this potentially history-altering proof is tucked away within the Vatican's secret archive, leaving the truth obscured as long as it remains inaccessible to the public. Now, I would suspect that if, say, there was, air quotes, proof that he did not exist, that he did exist, and why they would continue to keep that a secret is because people's belief systems, that faith that anchors them, once it becomes 100% provable, then I think the strength of faith maybe starts to fade away.
When we were kids and we believed in Santa Claus, it's more fun to believe in Santa. But once you realize he's not real, you're like, huh, And I think the same can happen when you know it's real. You're
Yeah.
kind of like, oh, he's just a real guy. He's just like a celebrity who lives up in the north. It almost takes away the magic is taken away when you have proof. But then, like you're saying, but then one would argue if Jesus wasn't a real figure as it's claimed to be. And keep in mind, Paul was the first author of the Bible. That's what I'm getting at. This was 100 years later. So here's Paul with this information. Said, look, my understanding is, again, I'm not a Bible scholar. People can let me know. But my understanding, Paul was the creator of Christianity. He created the religion. And by creating the religion, he created the Christ figure. That's my understanding. If he is sort of the L. Ron Hubbard of his time, creating a religion through a book, the New Testament, then he could tell somebody else, hey, just so you know, it's a story, dude. It's a faith promoting story, but it's just a story all the same. This one is actually quite interesting. So we know that Paul did obviously meet with the leaders of that time because of his Christianity went in the face of the Roman religion. Of course, he was in trouble a lot. The Apostle Paul was a fascinating. Now he was a real person. That much we know. That was a real guy running around. We know that much, and he did talk about Christ. So those things are true. It would be interesting at the very least to hear those real behind the scene conversations he may have had. And I guess we'll never know, but the Vatican might hold that conversation, essentially what this one is saying.
Yeah. In either way, they need the people to be continuously having faith. Either way, if they have it and it proves that Jesus isn't real, or Paul said Jesus isn't real, who knows? Maybe he just said that to appease whatever circumstances he was in. If he was in trouble, just striking a deal. I'd like to see why he would say what he said. And because it's secret and hidden, we will never know.
He might have said, look, I'm just trying to create a religion or create a narrative here that's different than what you guys have to say. I'm sorry it bothers you, but I think what Jesus had to say was pretty cool, but I'm amping up his persona a little bit. He's the Son of God now. Who knows, man? Crazier things have been talked about on this planet. All right, Jay, I've got the next one. Number 6, in the small Portuguese city of Fatima, 3 young shepherd children claim to have witnessed various visions from the Virgin Mary. According to the accounts, these visions culminated in a mass miracle involving the sun. The first vision supposedly showed the children the fires of hell, filled with demons and suffering souls. In the second vision, they saw a prediction that World War I would end soon, but a second World War would follow immediately if the Pope didn't consecrate Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. The third secret was initially kept confidential until the year 2000, when it was revealed to be about the persecution of Christians in the 20th century and the assassination attempt on Pope John Paul II. However, doubts persist among some individuals who are convinced that the third secret disclosed in 2000 is not the same as the one originally revealed to the children of Fatima. If the publicized secret was indeed a fabrication, there is speculation that the real secret might be concealed somewhere within the Vatican's archive. The mystery surrounding the authenticity of the revealed secret adds to the intrigue and speculation surrounding the events of Fatima.
Yeah, that's a famous story. It's a pretty well-known story.
This must have taken place then during the First World War, I would assume, because they said it was going to end soon. So obviously it must have been in the midst of that war is what I'm gathering.
The part that I don't understand fully, a second world war would follow immediately if the Pope didn't consecrate Russia to the Immaculate Heart of Mary.
Oh, I've got a scene from a film here, Jay, if we watch that. Of the conversation the shepherd children had with the Virgin Mary. Just 3 young children. Oh, there she is, Jay. She's in the clouds. Kids are scared, rightfully so.
What's the matter? What was it? What did you see? Over there. I don't see anything.
The girls see her, but not the boy.
Don't be afraid.
Oh.
I won't hurt you.
Let's see if she gives any. I want to hear what her prophecies are. I never heard of this film.
You're not frightened now, are you?
I'm a little bit scared.
Where does your excellency come from?
I am from heaven.
Who are you talking to, Lucia? A lady.
The boy doesn't see him. Oh.
Right.
Don't you hear her? No.
Tell him to say the rosary. Then he will see me.
She says to say the rosary, Francisco.
Jeez.
I come to ask you to come here for 6 months in succession. On the 13th day at the same hour. Then I will tell you who I am and what I want.
Will I go to heaven?
Yes, you will.
And Jacinta?
Also.
And Francisco?
Yes. But he will have to say many rosaries.
Lucia! I can see her now. I see her plain.
Do you wish to offer yourself to God? To endure all the suffering he may please to send you? to help atone for the sins by which he is offended, and to ask for the conversion of sinners.
Shall we? Yes, we do. Yes, my lady.
Then you will have much to suffer. The grace of God will be your comfort.
All right, so there she is. That's the Lady of Fatima visiting these kids. Interesting film.
Interesting.
Well, this is from 1917. It was the event. So during the First World War. So these children saw the Virgin Mary during the First World War. Yeah, people are obviously very much believing this. Our Lady of Fatima, thanks for all your favors received. Mother Mary, please pray for my family and the whole world. Blessed Mother Mary, what a beautiful apparition. Thank you for uploading this. My God, I love you in the most blessed sacrament. I mean, people believe this, Jay. Thank you, Blessed Mary, for healing me. Wow. I mean, I sometimes forget that the Mother Mary is such a worship figure in the Catholic Church, the Catholic religion. I'm not going to lie, says one person. As a Catholic guy in my 50s, I saw this for the first time in 1975 as a kid. I cried at this part, and years later, still get misty-eyed. Wow. Interesting how they had to come back to the same spot a few times each time, the repeating visits. That's a mantra throughout religious stories about the repeating visits. Interesting. I didn't know that story. At the very least, I did not know the story, nor did I know they made a film about that in the 70s.
You're not familiar with
No.
Oh yeah, I've heard it many times, or heard of it many times. Not
maybe you should go see the film.
No, I saw enough.
You saw enough? Are you sure? Okay.
I saw enough.
Interesting story. All right, Jay, what do you got for the next one?
Speculation and conspiracy theories sometimes extend to dark and sensational ideas. The one such claim suggests that the Catholic Church is not just a religious institution, but a demonic one, with Satan himself allegedly being held within the Vatican's secret archive. This theory gained attention through the statements of Father Gabriel Amorth, the Vatican's most senior exorcist, who claimed to have spoken to the devil during his extensive career conducting exorcisms. Father Amorth asserted that Satan was hiding somewhere within the Vatican and linked the scandals and corruption within the church to the influence of the devil. The circumstances of his alleged encounter with the devil remain unknown. However, the details surrounding why the devil would be kept in the Vatican and the reasons for maintaining such information as a secret remain unclear and are likely rooted in speculation and sensationalism rather than verifiable facts.
There are people out there who believe the entire Catholic Church, all of Vatican City, and the Pope himself are controlled by Lucifer, all of them puppets of the devil. But this is all just wild conspiracy theory speculation. It's true that we don't know if the devil exists. The only church that has a devil inside of it is the Holy Trinity Church in Westminster. Lucifer's portrayal lives inside this church in the United Kingdom, but it's not what you think. The devil was put here by a local artist, a man named Paul Fryer, who created a grotesque statue of Lucifer in wax with wings made of actual feathers caught up in power cables. It's one of the creepiest things in any church, especially one that's been in use for over a century. But of course, it's just an artist's disturbing work, not proof that the devil is running the Vatican.
Pope's exorcist says the devil is in the Vatican. Amorth stated that the devil is not everywhere, but when he is present, it is painful. The devil is pure spirit, invincible. He is shown with the painful blasphemies coming from the person which he possesses. He can stay hidden. He can speak different languages. He can transform himself. Amorth has seen many exorcisms and many cases that led him to believe that devil is alive and well, and that he is in the Vatican. He claims that the devil tries to attack within Vatican City, and he has tried with the 1981 attack of Ali Aqsa. When Amorth was interviewed, he was asked, "You've said publicly that you believe, referring to the current church scandals, that Satan is in the Vatican. Do you still believe this?" He replied with a simple yes, and went on to say that he believes that Satan rules the world and that Satan is in the Vatican.
All right, so interesting. That's one of the more fascinating claims, that the devil himself, Jay, is in the Vatican. Keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. That could be what the Vatican's doing here.
Yeah, and I have heard there are people within the Vatican, like higher upper people in the Vatican Church. There is quite a division amongst the senior leadership, and many feel that the church has been highly influenced and kind of hijacked. I don't know with the devil specifically, if that's just a figure of speech, that they've lost their way, especially the senior leadership, the very higher ups, including the Pope. There are people that believe that they have lost their way.
For number 4, we have the Grand Grimoire. is a purported medieval book with legendary powers, believed to have been written in the 16th century by Honorius of Thebes, who claimed to be, again, possessed by the devil. This book is said to contain instructions on creating magic talismans and amulets, crafting spells, and even summoning demons. Most notably, it provides guidance on how to summon the devil and make a pact with him. I'm telling you, if this book does exist, I'm not reading it. I'm good. I don't need to summon these guys. They're good. They can stay where they are. I don't need to talk to them. I'm good.
Well, the power of suggestion, you can really speak yourself out.
Ouija boards scare me.
Yeah.
Something about those.
Yeah.
Like, there's enough stories about things that I believe them. I don't know what's going on, but something's going on. There's no way everyone's lying about their experience because there's some legit stuff going on. All right. Several copies of the Grand Grimoire do exist, but it's claimed that the Vatican possesses the original, unaltered version. Some argue that other copies are fake or have been altered to render them powerless. Others believe that while old copies have some degree of power, the original held by the Vatican is considered, obviously, the most potent. According to certain theories, the Vatican retains the genuine functional copy as a safeguard to protect humanity from potential catastrophe if the book were to fall into the wrong hands. So they're holding on to it so it doesn't get into some evil, nefarious person who wants to destroy the world.
The Grand Grimoire, probably written during the early 19th century, might be a way to get unimaginable powers. But what if that was not the case? It is said the one who wrote this book was in the control of the devil. Legend warns that one wrong move could bind one's soul to the devil, forever enslaved in darkness. Today, the Grand Grimoire is safeguarded deep within the Vatican's sanctum. Shrouded in mystery and peril, it remains off limits to those who dare seek its forbidden wisdom.
That's what almost sounds, I want to say the most legit to a certain degree, but it almost sounds like there might be a book.
It feels pretty legit. Okay. The historical depiction of Jesus has been a topic of much discussion and speculation. Contrary to the popular images often portrayed, the historical Jesus was a Hebrew who likely lived in the mountainous regions of northern Israel. Consequently, he would have had more Middle Eastern appearance rather than the European features often seen in popular culture. The notion the Vatican may possess a contemporary depiction of Jesus' appearance has sparked curiosity and debate. If such a depiction exists, it would potentially serve as evidence of Jesus' existence from a few years after his death and offer a rare glimpse into the physical appearance of this ancient historical figure. However, the existence of such a portrayal is both unknown and disputed. The reasons, if any, for the Vatican to keep this information under wraps are also uncertain. I find the idea that someone actually has a picture of him probably fairly unlikely. I mean, how many pictures of historical figures are there of people back then? Like, there'd be very few that are actual art of really only any of these historical people back then, let alone Jesus. Like, do they have a picture of Pontius Pilate? Do we have pictures of Judas Iscariot? Do we have pictures of Doubting Thomas? I mean, how many pictures of historical figures really are there from that era?
I think this might be an interesting short here to watch. This kind of ties in with Joe Rogan.
You think he was a real person?
Most of the scholars I've talked to say he probably was. The evidence is not great, of course, but I don't think it's that big a deal, actually, because a wandering preacher called Yeshua or Yehoshua would not be surprising. I mean, it's a common name, and there are plenty of wandering preachers. What would be very surprising would be if he raised Lazarus from the dead and walked on water and turned water into wine. And that, of course, did not happen. And the point I'm making is that it's a very big difference to say, did he exist? That's very different from saying that a miracle worker who really did do miracles rather than conjuring tricks existed.
Yeah. I think when they get together and they talk about all the values that Jesus proposed, if Jesus is the higher power, it gives them this sort of, again, moral scaffolding to live their life.
Yes. Well, Jesus would probably, on the whole, provide a fairly good moral scaffolding. Not totally, but he was ahead of his time anyway.
This Richard Dawkins,
of course, with Joe Rogan there, and that's kind of what we're speaking about before. Was I think Jesus could have been very well a real person.
I think there's pretty good evidence that he was a legitimate individual.
But then what was created around him the fandom, so to speak, around him was, who knows, it could have been expanded. But that's for everyone to decide on their own accord, of course. And what we're saying here with this number is there a painting of him? If so, the Vatican's holding it. Okay, my next one is my last one. This one is a fun one. The claim, Jason, that skulls resembling aliens were found beneath the Vatican in 1998 and that the Vatican has been hiding evidence of extraterrestrial life. The idea that the Vatican is concealing direct evidence of aliens, including the notion of live alien beings kept in the Vatican's secret archive, remains speculative. So, Jason, at the end of the day, there is speculation or rumors that the Vatican itself is holding physical evidence of skulls of alien beings. What do you think of that?
It's possible.
Yeah, sure. If any institution might have it, it might be that.
Honestly, I think the Vatican has a lot of stuff. Their historical archives is significant, and it's massive volumes of information. Will they have skulls of aliens? It's very possible. I mean, if there's a cover-up of aliens, which there seems to be, I wouldn't be surprised if an ancient, powerful religion would have information and evidence of that. Because Catholicism is obviously a major religion, number one or number two in the world. If you are involved in an alien cover-up and you happen to be Catholic as well, and you want verification or the protection of the religion in which you believe and participate in, maybe you would go to the Vatican. Hey, what do you think of this? How do you feel about this? Hey, Pope. So, whatever. I can see them going, yeah, bring it over, and then them taking it and keeping it.
The Gandolfo Castle, perched above a glistening green lake near Rome, has a magical aura. It's the Pope's summer residence, and it is here that Vatican astronomers have for decades studied the heavens. Perched on the roof of this 17th century castle are two domes, holding telescopes that Vatican astronomers have been using since the 1930s. Now they have much more powerful telescopes for their research located in Tucson, Arizona. But it is here at Castel Gandolfo that the astronomers have their headquarters. Inside the walls of this castle, an unassuming Jesuit from Argentina leads the Vatican astronomical research and has recently caused an uproar by opening a debate about aliens.
In a universe so big, huge, I would say, as the one where we live, with 100 billion of galaxies, with each galaxy with 100 billion of stars. Probably with many of these stars having planets, it could be possible that life could evolve as the way we know on Earth.
Father Funes says he is not sure if other forms of life would be more or less intelligent than humans, but he is convinced that the existence of aliens is not a contradiction with the Catholic faith. There has been no word from top Vatican officials about Funes' comments, but some people on the street find them odd. Richard Charnock was taking a group from the All Hallows Catholic High School on a trip to Italy when he heard about the comments from the Vatican astronomer.
I think it's preposterous that they're saying that. There is one humans that God created. We come back to the Bible. He didn't create Adam, Eve, and E.T., did he? It was Adam and Eve. And so, and I just think it goes against what we believe as Christians.
We probably won't be seeing aliens at Mass anytime soon, but the Vatican's chief astronomer does say that there could exist other forms of life outside Earth. And he says if they do exist, they are God's creatures.
Well, the idea is, for me, I mean, that guy counteracting what that father stated, it isn't the father, the chief astronomer, isn't saying that God didn't create other things. Just because we have a religious historical text in the Bible that talks about Earth, is there any reason why one planet could not visit another planet? One species from a planet visit another species from another planet?
Yeah, of course. I don't think it contradicts anything. And if I were to be of a religious mind, I could also be of the mind that, hey, the universe is a vast place, man. It is insane to think, just in the realm of odds, mathematical odds. And there actually is a mathematical equation. I forget what it's called. You can Google it, that proves the existence of life outside of this planet. Because mathematically speaking, how can you have an endless vast of energy and planets and suns and say we're the only thing that lives? That's insane. The mathematical probability that other life exists outside of this planet Has to be true.
If you're God creating all of these things of which we cannot experience or is so big that we can't experience or see it.
Empirical evidence, or is there anything? Or
why would he create something that we, as the only creatures, to observe?
Well,
Can't experience it or even observe 99% of what has been created. What would be the purpose of that creation?
For us to enjoy
but
the
we can't.
wonderment.
We're not enjoying something we can't observe, but we assume that space is basically forever.
That's a conundrum.
So I actually agree
I'm
with
with
the
that.
father.
Yeah, of course, I do too.
And not against that guy who says, "Oh, you can only create Adam and Eve." No, he's obviously created the whole universe.
Yeah, human life and alien are for two different situations. Put
Exactly.
it that way. There's two different animals.
Those observations and experiences for other creations are for other creations to enjoy and experience and observe.
We are being observed by them. All right, Jay, you've got the last one. This one might be a bit of a bummer for people, a bit of a downer.
The theory that the Vatican's secret archive holds no groundbreaking secrets and is, in fact, a case of mistranslation. In fact, a case of mistranslation is a plausible perspective. The term secret in the name may have been inaccurately translated from the original Latin term secretum, which more accurately means personal rather than secret.
It's just private.
It's more of the Vatican's personal archive rather than the secret archive.
It could be sacred too. Sacred, not secret. Yeah, teachings, ideas, thoughts, speculations. It's still probably fascinating reading if we could read it in English. Probably some fascinating stuff to observe and read. But at the end of the day, it's just like, hey, it's secret and sacred to our organization and our history, but it's not for public consumption. But there isn't any alien skulls down here. It's not available to the public. At the end of the day, it's still, there is stuff there. There is a Vatican personal archive. There are things in that archive. It is not open to the public. Thus, speculations will abound.
Right. But in those terms, that sounds very plausible, actually.
I love the intrigue too. And I would suspect, though, that is that there's probably still some very fascinating stories, accounts, just the whole cover-ups, all that stuff's there. It might not be alien skulls, but we're talking some pretty scandalous stuff and stories, and who knows what is in that freaking archive with the journals and the history, basically church history for the Catholic Church.
But the thing is it's not just a history of Catholicism, because they are so interconnected with the historical, with the world being the biggest religion that it is.
True.
There are records that have all disappeared, the Fire of Alexandria,
right?
And those sort of things. What remnants can mirror those records from the Catholics and other records around the world? Like, what did not we, because I'm not Catholic, but what did they gather? What did they have that has been lost elsewhere?
Yeah, so actually, maybe that's a better one than I anticipated, actually, now that I think about it. There could be some very fascinating things there for sure. They're very tangible. Talk about tangible, historical, intriguing, scandalous type stuff. So there you go. Maybe nothing fantastical for number one, but legitimate, some very interesting stuff being not publicly viewable to the public. Okay, so Jason, of those 10, what is the most least likely held thing that you think is down there?
Those glasses.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They're not legit glasses. Some guy might go, "Hey, I have these glasses."
Sure.
He was really good at metalwork and he had these cool glasses that he made. But I don't think there's any functionality. I don't think there ever was, and I don't think there ever will be in those glasses. So those glasses are gone in my eyes. In my eyes.
Okay.
They don't exist.
This is a tough one because I almost feel like there could be some sort of evil spirit down there. I don't know,
There are possessions of homes.
Yeah, I know. I'll let you have that one, but I'm just going to go with devil itself is not in the Vatican.
Yes. Yeah, that's a close second to me. The way I view that is not so much 100%. Let's pretend the organization, the religion, is actually corrupt.
Right.
And so that's where the devil feels comfortable hanging out. Or the religion is pure, and then so that's where the devil is going to want to create his greatest influence.
Sure. That's a good story.
Or there's a bit of mix of both, right? Like some people do say that the top echelons of the religion has been corrupted.
Right.
So there might be this idea more of a figure of speech or...
So I think this sort of ties in with what would I least like to interact with or kind of handle. So, I think it's the most least likely thing to be down there. But if it was down there, if all these things were truly down there, all 10 things, I'm cool. I don't need to meet them. I'm good.
If all 10 things existed, what I would want to interact the least with would be the devil.
There you go. So it's kind of a double whammy for me. I don't think he's down there, but if he was, no thanks. I'd rather flip through the book. I wouldn't cast any spells, but at least it'd be kind of cool to look at some pictures and stuff and flip through it maybe. But all right. Well, thank you so much, folks, for watching and or listening to us today. Remember to leave us a review on this episode. Now, if you're a fan of our music episodes, our next episode will be out in about a week or two after this release, because we are going to do a REM Monster. That's right. We're going to do REM's Monster album. It's going to be a big episode, so we're going to take a couple of weeks to record it. That's why it might be a delayed release. So stand by for that if you're a fan of our music episodes. Remember, in front of every silver lining, there is a cloud. And today it was, for Ryan, the devil in the Vatican. And for Jason, it was the Oculus. What do you call those? The Oculus or Google glasses? The chronovisor. And he doesn't want to meet the devil at the same time.